And what are, according to you, the expectations and the requirements from the infrastructure in the mobility as a service ecosystem? So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Christoph. And first of all, thanks for inviting me here. I have very much enjoyed my participation in this session for two reasons. First of all, I very much enjoyed hearing the other presentation, and I had great takeaways from each one of them. I feel that the dynamic here is working really well, and there are good integration between the topics. But second reason is that when I started my career in transport sector some 10 or 15 years ago, my first job or first position was in Finnish transport agency or authority, and I was then on my hands on procuring the payments and bitumen for the road maintenance and construction. So now it's quite good to be back here and see that how the development in this field has been going on. And although the essence and of course the meaning roads as a connector for society and our mobility is still the same. When I had a tour there in the exhibition, I also felt that there has been big progress and many innovation in this field, so it was really nice to have a visit here. But I'm coming from Brussels now, although I'm originally from Finland. I'm representing here an international organization called Ertico ITS Europe, which is based in Brussels, working with the ITS Intelligent Transport System for road transportation. And there in Ertico, I'm in charge of mobility as a service and running a European, international association called Mobility as a Service Alliance. And I will also tell a bit more about Mobility as a Service Alliance in the end of this presentation, but I will start with the main topic, mobility as a service. So, in my presentation, I will go through mobility as a service from the several approaches or several perspectives. What is mobility as a service? When mobility as a service is happening? Why mobility as a service is happening? And how it's happening. So let's start with what. In Mobility as a Service Alliance, we have defined mobility as a service as the integration of various forms of transport into single service accessible on demand. If you ask me personally how I define mobility as a service, I probably give this kind of definition. So first of all, it's something multimodal by nature, so there should be integration of different transport modes into one offering. There should be a single payment, because mobility as a service is always very end-user orientated, customer orientated, so by single payment we ensure that it's something really easy to use for the end user, so there is no need for several tickets for each leg of journey. Really advanced and progressive data or information services are also an essential part of mobility as a service. Customer, when she or he is traveling, he and she needs really good real-time travel information. But real-time travel information is not even enough. What we want to provide for the end user is that the application, what he's using to assist her traveling, can learn from the travel patterns, learn from the preferences, and really assist the person through the journey. And also, if there's any delays or disruption, the passenger will be all time very well informed. I also see that when mobility as a service is becoming more and more mature, there will be definitely different added value services integrated in the mobility offerings. They could be something mobility related, for example, pay for your parking or things like that, or it could be really something else. I believe that mobility as a service is basically kind of gateway of mobility and transportation when it's transferring towards entertainment or experience economy. So this different steps can be also seen as a maturity model for mobility as a service. So basically we can also define multimodal travel chain as a mobility as a service offering, but definitely later on we will add some other features there, and they will be more and more comprehensive. When? It's important to acknowledge that mobility as a service is not something which will be there in 5 or 10 years. It's already here today. This is a map from the Europe where we already have mobility as a services available on different maturity levels. And these are not research projects or something under the pilot, but they are real in-life projects or services already available for the end users. Why? So there are several drivers in the mobility and transportation sectors, and also they are giving us an explanation that why we now see the emerge of these mobility services. One of them is definitely the new or evolved preferences of the end users, and this is also related to alternatives of the use or ownership of the car. Here I have some results from the study of IBM. It was done last year, and they made a survey of 15,000 participants or people, and in that survey the result was that more than 40% of the respondents was interested in subscription-based mobility packages or mobility options more than owning or having their own car. When we are discussing about mobility as a service, it's quite interesting from the policy-making perspective that we can also use this tool to meet those quite dramatic challenges what we have in terms of meeting the targets to reduce the environmental impacts of transportation. As probably everyone in this room knows that transportation sector or industry is the only one in EU economy where the CO2 emissions has been still growing after 1990 when we started really ambitious measures to reduce the emissions. Not too much has happened since. So here with providing end user with good integrated mobility services, we can actually channel new demand for the use of public transportation. And I have here results from a few studies. This is from city of Vienna where they had a mobility as a service pilot. 2015, it was run or organized by Public Transport Authority of City of Vienna. And when the end users and citizens and residents of City of Vienna were provided with integrated mobility packages, combining use of different transport modes and really good travel information, what happened was that the use of public transportation was one which was increasing, although there was different mobility options like use of shared cars and taxis also included. We have similar results from City of Helsinki, where they have really advanced mobility as a service available, where they integrate all public transportation within Helsinki city area, use of city bikes, use of shared taxis and shared cars and rental cars into one mobility package, and there again providing people good information and travel planning services. That it has been public transportation which has new customers. And maybe about this Helsinki case, it's also interesting to mention that this is maybe the most advanced mobility as a service kind of model what we have right now. So in terms of different models we have, of course, we can just have like one journey and still it's multimodal and there is a really good travel information and you can buy one ticket for the whole journey. But the other option is that what they are now doing in Helsinki, that actually there is a monthly subscription for your all mobility needs, and then you can use unlimited amount of the for example, public transportation and different other transport modes with the monthly payment. So it's basically something really similar what you have for your mobile subscription today, that there is a combined of data transfer or combination of data transfer, SMS and calls, everything in one offering. So this this aspect of mobility as a service, that by deploying it, we can really contribute to the decarbonization target of transportation, is really important from the policy making perspective. Because often in transportation sector, what we are using, we have to use really hard measures. We are usually using taxation, we are usually using some restriction for low emission zones and things like that, when we have to limit or restrict or steer people's behavior. Now, with mobility as a service, we are actually providing people with better alternatives, new options, better services, and still we can make it more environmentally friendly way. Third driver, what I would like to maybe stress here is the price of the personal mobility. Here you can see study, it's from ARC Invest, published January or February this year, and they have seen how the development of the personal mobility has been gone since 1934. So not too much has happened. It's only after when we are going towards connected, automated, shared, and electrified mobility, that case combination, which is often referred by automotive industry, we can actually reach some efficiency gains in our transportation system. How? I don't know how many of you is working for the public administration or authorities here in this room. Maybe hands up. Few of them. Okay, this is maybe interesting because I know that many countries in Europe are now considering that what kind of measures should public policy make, public policy players or politicians or regulators do regarding mobility as a service. UK, for example, they are now drafting or shaping their own national mobility as a service policy. Same thing is happening in Denmark and Netherlands as well. And Finland, they have already made quite big push for mobility as a service already. So when you are kind of considering that how the whole field of transportation and mobility is evolving, it quite obvious that in many countries the MaaS will be also under consideration. There are many public policy tools or measures how you can encourage the development or emerge or boom of new mobility services. First of all, is of course ensure that there is a market access for the different kind of new mobility services. We often encourage public sector to use more open approach, avoid bottlenecks, monopolies or closed system. Data policy is very, very important and well-functioning tool here. Please use so much open data as possible. Please encourage different players in transport sector use open data and open the databases. And maybe you can also consider some investments and large-scale piloting for mobility as a service. But first of all, the most important thing is define your ambitious level, that how ambitiously you would like to be part of this development, and then your policy actions and policy measures should be aligned with your ambitious level. So, what does MaaS mean for roads and infrastructure, and what does infrastructure mean for MaaS? They are often maybe seen, often I feel that there is some kind of like contradiction or conflict even between the infrastructure and new services, and that definitely shouldn't be the thing. MaaS service is always only as good as the weakest link in the whole chain or system is. So therefore, in order to enable high quality transport or mobility services, we definitely need very high quality infrastructure to be there as a platform, to be there enabler, to be there as a field of everything what we are trying to plant here. And that was also referred by previous speakers that we shouldn't maybe focus not only the transport infrastructure, but also the high-quality digital infrastructure is nowadays really essential part for the transport services. So that is one thing. Then second thing to pay attention too is that mobility as a service is multimodal by nature, and taking that into the infrastructure system or transportation system, it means that we have to pay more and more attention to the transit hubs and see how people are moving there and what are the requirements for the transit stations. It could be, there was a good reference in the presentation from European Cyclist Federation when you said that there's a park and ride areas, but how about well, ride and bike? Yeah, park bike. So this is one example, and also we maybe have to be prepared to add more capacity to store and allocate spaces for, let's say, shared fleets somewhere around the public transportation hubs, for example. Here the most important thing is to acknowledge how we can use and deploy the data power. Now, thanks to digitalization and databases and data what we have, we actually first time have very good idea that how people are actually moving today, because so far the transport planning and modeling has been based on the estimation or some like average user what we have. We have had like really tiny example, and then we have kind of had estimated how people are probably moving. Now we have already data on how they are moving, and when we are adding this mobility as a service layer and the really intelligent transport planning services and platforms and application, we can actually also start to learn how they would like to move. And that is really important. And when we are planning also our infrastructure, this is something to consider, how we can use the data to better kind of like prepare for the needs of the end users and travelers. I also encourage to do large-scale piloting in terms of mobility as a service if you don't know how to start with pilots. And here, it was nice to hear that you were also emphasizing the importance of public-private partnership, and pilots are really good way to do it and also learn how we should collaborate. In terms of funding, our recommendation is that we allocate funding to infrastructure projects and innovative services, and especially study that how they can support each other. And then, as I mentioned already before, please deploy and study how we can use those soft steering measures enabled by mobility as a service in order to build our transport system to be a bit more efficient and smooth. Mobility as a service is not only about the company or body who is integrating the mobility services, but it's really an ecosystem. It's not even a value chain anymore, but it's really a system where everybody has to work together. So here is some idea what kind of, who we need to be there in the very core of the development of mobility services. We need definitely one who is integrating, but that is only one layer there. We need the transport service providers, we need IT service providers, we need that really good infrastructure there, we have to engage advanced payment system, we have to engage insurance services, and of course then we need those enabling functions like regulators, policymakers, research, academia, investors, and cities. So this is really a co-creation what we are now doing here, and then what we are indeed doing in MaaS Alliance, we are bringing all these actors together. So at this moment we have 45 members. MaaS Alliance is public-private partnership, so there are private companies and public organizations who want to be front runners for the development and deployment of new mobility services. We are building preconditions for the open systems. Everybody is welcome to be there. Everybody is welcome to join our working groups and say how he and she or her or his organization would like to do this. We are paying attention to the end user perspective because we see that we only success here if we are able to provide for the end user something better than the conventional transportation system is. We are also working with the roaming of services, meaning that from city to city they are somehow interoperable, that again from the end user perspective you only need one application what you have to use. And of course we are doing market monitoring and matching our partners with other partners and for example cities and public authorities. We have, well, as I said, 45 members at this moment, and our members are now here. I'm quite proud to say that we already have quite many of the different actors from the transportation system. So we have public authorities, we have ministries, we have those who are providing new and kind of like conventional transport services, we have public transport service providers, we have infrastructure managers. But if you feel that you would like to be part of this development, please find me here, and I would be really glad to tell you a bit more about what we are doing there. It's really co-creation, and in our working group you can really can be part of shaping this development. So here you can also find my contact details. Working there in Ertico ITS Europe and mobility as a service is the thing I'm very passionate about. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Pia. Are there any questions regarding this last presentation? So now we are just getting at the end of this session. I would like to invite all the speakers here on the stage, and we still have some minutes for some last conclusion words.
There is enough.